Welcome to the Crime Report, where we delve into the darkest corners of real-life mysteries. From unsolved murders to shocking criminal conspiracies, we explore the stories that shook the world. Each episode, we take you step by step through the investigation, uncovering the truth behind the headlines and the secrets that still remain hidden. If you're a fan of crime stories, stay tuned and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Get ready, because we're about to uncover a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Buried by Blood, the DNA link that solved a 30-year murder mystery. Part 1, The Basement File. For 3 decades, the murder of 17-year-old Hannah Cole haunted the quiet town of Larchwood, Oregon. In 1993, she was found in a wooded ravine, strangled, bruised, and barefoot. Her school bag was recovered a week later, dumped behind a gas station 30 miles away. No one was ever arrested. The case went cold in 1995 and stayed that way until 2024. A retired detective named Frank Calder had recently digitized several old files. On a whim, he uploaded a degraded DNA sample from Hannah's sweater to a public genealogy site. The hit came from someone in Texas, a 34-year-old schoolteacher named Amber Landry, who was confused why the FBI showed up at her door. Amber wasn't a suspect, but her DNA was a 14% match to the unknown sample. That meant one thing: someone in her family had murdered Hannah Cole. Agents traced family trees, searched records, and found a cousin, Nathaniel Nate Landry. A loner, lived in Oregon in the 90s, now worked as a groundskeeper at a nursing home in Boise. Agents interviewed Nate. He seemed calm, cooperative, too calm. He claimed he'd never met Hannah Cole. He was lying. Inside Nate's house was a locked basement door. With a warrant, they went in. What they found was worse than they imagined. In a sealed container were items taken from multiple victims, not just Hannah. There had been others. Part 2. Buried by Blood. The basement was suffocatingly silent, save for the faint sound of breathing. Detective Elena Rodriguez stood frozen, her flashlight casting long shadows across the cracked concrete floor. She had just found something that could change everything: a torn photograph with a blurred figure, barely visible but unmistakably familiar. Her heart raced as she carefully examined the photo. The face, half obscured by time, was that of a young girl. The missing girl from a 1998 case. The one they'd never found, despite all the efforts. The photograph was no accident. It had been deliberately hidden in the far corner of the room, tucked underneath a rusty pipe. As she held it, Elena's mind raced. There were too many questions, too many inconsistencies in the case. The girl's disappearance hadn't just been a random act, it was connected to something much darker. She turned the photo over, her fingers trembling as she read the words scrawled on the back in hurried handwriting. "Find the truth, it's all here." A chill ran down her spine. Elena knew that this was more than a clue. It was a message. But who had left it? And more importantly, who had it been meant for? She turned back to the rest of the basement, her flashlight sweeping across the dust-covered surfaces. Everything was untouched, as though the room had been left in a hurry. But one thing caught her eye: a small, unmarked box on the floor, half hidden beneath a pile of discarded furniture. Without a second thought, she approached the box and slowly pried it open. Inside, there were old newspaper clippings, each detailing an unsolved case from the past. As her eyes skimmed the headlines, "Another girl missing," "Unsolved murders," "Strange deaths in the neighborhood," she began to realize that all of these cases were tied together. The girl from 1998, the others who had vanished, and the strange events surrounding them. They were all connected to this very house. Suddenly, Elena's phone buzzed. She picked it up, her heart skipping a beat. The message was from her colleague, Officer Daniels, who had been running DNA tests on evidence from a crime scene. "Elena, I think you need to see this. We've matched the DNA from the blood on the wall to a local, someone you know. The blood that had been smeared across the wall when the last victim was discovered." It had never made sense, especially given that no one had seen any trace of the killer. But now it was beginning to unravel. The DNA matched someone within the town, someone they'd never suspected. "Elena," the voice of Officer Daniels crackled through the phone, "you need to get back here. The person we've matched the DNA to, it's close. Very close." Her stomach twisted as the implications hit her. Someone in this small town, someone who had been under their noses the entire time, was involved in these murders. But who? And why? As Elena stood there, the weight of the truth pressing down on her, she realized that this case wasn't just about solving a murder. It was about uncovering a decades-old secret that could destroy everything. With the photograph still clutched in her hand and the box of clippings under her arm, Elena made her way back upstairs, determined to confront whatever truth the town had buried. But as she reached the top of the stairs, a cold breeze swept through the house, the door creaking open by itself. The whispers had started again. Buried by Blood Part 3. The cold draft that swept through the old house sent a chill down Elena's spine. She hesitated for a moment at the top of the stairs, listening for any sign of movement. The whispers had stopped, but the eerie sensation of being watched lingered in the air. She quickly walked down the hallway, her heart pounding with every step. She needed to know the truth, to bring closure to the case that had haunted this town for decades. The photograph, the DNA match, and the strange clues from the basement were leading her to something far bigger than a single murder. There was a darkness in this house, one that had been buried for too long. As she approached the living room, Elena's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Daniels. "We found something. You need to come back to the station now. It's urgent." Her breath hitched. The tension in her chest tightened. What could it be? The DNA report had already shaken her to her core. What else was she about to uncover? Without another thought, Elena shoved the phone back into her pocket and pushed open the door to the living room. Her eyes immediately fell on the dusty fireplace and the rows of old family portraits hanging on the walls. But it was the large wooden cabinet in the corner that caught her attention. It was locked, the brass handle tarnished with age. The cabinet seemed out of place, too deliberate, too secure for a house that had been left to decay. She approached it slowly, every nerve on edge. As she reached for the handle, she heard the sound of footsteps coming from behind her. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Turning quickly, she found herself face to face with a man she recognized all too well. Detective Grant Harris, a former colleague and longtime friend. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes that unsettled her. "Elena," he said softly, his voice hoarse. "You need to stop. It's too dangerous to keep digging." Elena stepped back, her heart racing. "What are you talking about? I'm not stopping until I have answers. You know what this case means. We're so close." Grant's eyes darted to the cabinet, then back to Elena. There was a shift in the air, a silent exchange of understanding. It was clear he was hiding something he wasn't ready to admit. "Elena, this isn't just a case. It's something bigger than both of us," he muttered, glancing nervously at the door. The words echoed in her mind, but before she could respond, the sharp sound of a car screeching to a halt outside the house interrupted them. A voice called from the driveway. "Elena! Grant! Get out here!" It was Officer Daniels, panic evident in his tone. Without thinking, Elena turned and ran for the door, her instincts telling her that whatever was happening outside was tied to the mystery that had been unfolding within these walls. Grant followed closely behind, his heavy footsteps echoing through the hallway. As they reached the front door, they stepped into the night air. What they saw left them speechless. A dark figure stood at the edge of the property, their face obscured by a hood. The person was holding something, an old rusted key. The same key that matched the lock on the cabinet in the living room. "Elena, you need to leave this place now," Grant said, his voice strained. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." But Elena didn't listen. The truth was within her reach, and she wasn't about to back down now. The figure stepped forward, dropping the key on the ground before disappearing into the darkness. Elena rushed forward, picking up the key. It felt cold in her hand, like the weight of the secrets it held. The case had gone from a simple murder investigation to a fight for her own survival. There was no going back now. Whatever lay behind that locked cabinet could be the key to uncovering everything, or it could be her undoing. As Elena stood there, holding the key, she realized one thing. The house wasn't the only thing hiding secrets. So was everyone she thought she could trust. Buried by Blood Part 4 finale. The air was heavy and dark as Elena held the old key in her hand. It felt as though the answers she sought were just out of reach, but the sense of looming danger was equally strong. What was hidden behind that closed cupboard? And why had she become the target of someone who would stop at nothing to keep the truth buried? Alongside Grant, she moved quickly toward the door of the house. The flickering lights of police cars were visible in the distance, but time seemed to be running out. Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the hidden truth was slipping through her fingers, and the buried secret was still within reach, but just beyond their grasp. "Grant, we have to do this now," Elena said, her voice firm with determination. The door to the living room was still shut, the place where it all began, but she felt that the moment had come to reveal the truth. Grant stared at the key in her hand, shaking his head. "We need to wait. There's something you don't understand. You don't understand." But Elena felt it. She knew she couldn't stop, not until the truth was uncovered. Without saying another word, she stormed into the living room, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was still dark, filled with old furniture and rusted reminders of past times. The cupboard stood there, like a shadow in the dark, waiting to be opened. She walked up to it, the key clenched tightly in her hand, and slid it into the lock. The click wasn't loud, but it felt like a thunderous sound in her ears. The door creaked open slowly, and what she saw made her breath catch. There, hidden behind layers of dust and decay, lay a small wooden box. It was old, covered with a thin layer of dirt, but felt as if the weight of years of secrets rested on her shoulders. She opened the box cautiously, her fingers trembling with the tension. Inside, she found a series of documents, a few old photographs, and something that immediately sent chills down her spine: a bloodstain on a weathered letter. Her eyes raced across the words, her heart skipping a beat. The name on the letter wasn't stranger's. It was the name of her mother. She looked at Grant, who had now entered the room. His eyes were empty of any surprise, but it wasn't what caught her attention. It was what he said. "Elena, your mother wasn't who you thought she was." If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more thrilling mysteries like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your likes and shares help us grow and bring even more gripping tales to life. Thanks for listening.